die off.
Okay, we call to order the Lowell City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, March 15th at 7:03. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Councilor Harris,
Here.
Councilor Stratus,
Present.
Councilor Weathers.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Just a 5. Okay, stand for the pledge. It's Cam.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anybody have any desired change to the agenda for tonight? Any council? Mr. Cottle?
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have the check register for February 2022, financial report for 2021, December, financial report for January 2022, and approval of the minutes for February 15th to 2022 regular meeting. Does anybody want to have anything pulled out for new business? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Weathers and second by Ms. Harris for approval. All those in favor of the consent agenda as read, consent by say aye. Aye. Disapprove? For nays? No, everybody's for it. It's been a while, different clubs. Okay, next up is public comments. I don't have anything at this time. I don't believe by anybody. I know there's comments during the public hearings, but this is just generic public comments, which is available. I don't see anybody, don't hear anybody. Council comments. Don't see, no hear. Okay, next up, we worked our way all the way down to either 117 or 124 when we downloaded this thing for the city administrator's report. Mr. Connolly, you want to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. To give a brief update since our February 15th regular meeting, we have advertised for bids for the library and city hall project as of February the 28th. We held a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting on March 10th, which was well attended by general contracting firms and members of the different building trade professions. We will hold additional non-mandatory pre-bid visits this Thursday and next Thursday to give any interested bidders an opportunity to visit the project site. Bidding closes on March 31st at 2 p.m. Immediately thereafter, we will open the bids, and then we anticipate putting a contract on your agenda for approval in April. Once that contract is approved, we will issue a notice to proceed to the selected contractor. Penny Hummel is working on some grants for us to fund the opening day collection. She's already submitted one application for $20,000. She's applying for another $20,000 grant. So we have a budget of $40,000 for the opening day collection. That also includes ebooks as well, so a subscription for ebooks. So these are 100% grant funded. These grants don't require any matching funds. I've also received a budget and a draft proposal from our IT consultants with Lane Council of Governments to set up the IT system that includes a voice over IP phone system, a modern phone system. It includes installing the new computers, having checkout laptops for the library. They also inform me that they're updating some of their computers. They might be able to donate some laptops that are in good condition for us to use. They're starting at preparing an MOU to do the work, which I will present to you at a later date. Moving on to the park renovations project, we have an April 1st deadline for the local government grant program for Rolling Rock Park. This is my top priority to get the grant deadline. We would know around September timeframe if we're grant, If we do receive the grant, that will enable us to meet the matching requirements of the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So we would have a 100% grant funded renovation to Rolling Rock Park. I'm right now waiting on some updated cost estimate figures. On the East Main Street property, I have received the results from the Phase 2 environmental report. They did find one underground gas storage tank, as well as some soil contamination. They're working on preparing a proposal to me on doing the work to decommission the tanks, and I'll present that to you at a later date. Later on the agenda, you will see a purchase and sale agreement for East Main Street that includes some finalized language with the buyer. Once approved, I'll set up an appointment with the buyer, their realtor, the city's realtor, to sign the agreement. For our development code update projects, we kicked this off with a project team meeting on March the 7th. We discussed restarting the code update committee. We're still looking for someone who's a youth representative, someone from the school district, someone from the fire district, and lastly, someone who is knowledgeable about development or businesses in the downtown area, or who owns a business in the downtown area. We'd like to have that committee reconstituted sometime in April. On these property partitions and sales, the survey field work has been completed. I've met with our planners and engineer to start the partition process to sell those properties. I've received an appraisal report for 8 North Highland. I spoke to the city attorney today, and he actually found a realtor that he's going to recommend who can work with us to do, they call it scribe work. So we'll do for sale by owner, but they'll just prepare the paperwork and the title work. And they'll do that. They charge a 1% fee to do that. So I'll be presenting that to you when he has a contract for me. Other items for the remainder of this month, I'm going to have to focus on the budget and put everything else to the side. I'm recommending a first budget committee meeting on April the 27th at 6 p.m. with 2 additional budget committees, May 4th and May 11th, also at 6 p.m. Those are on Wednesdays. If there are no objections from council, I'll go ahead and get those scheduled.
Are there openings on the budget committee? I've lost
We
track.
do have openings on budget.
One or two, something.
I want to say 2 or 3.
Okay.
I think we had 3, but we got 1.
Yes,
Okay, so at least 2 then.
yes, yes. If you know somebody who's interested, be happy to talk to them. The Blackberry Jam Festivals Committee is underway in planning for an event in July. I believe they're off to a good start. I did receive 1 application for the city council vacancy. Since we didn't have anybody apply the last go around, I extended the deadline until March the 28th. So I anticipate scheduling these applicants to meet with you at your April meeting. That concludes my report. What questions do you have for me?
On the walkthrough with the contractors, what kind of turnout did you have?
We had a pretty good turnout. How many people would you say were there, Max?
Probably 30 people.
30?
12 different businesses signed up on the sign up sheet.
That's good to
15.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, very
That's
good turnout.
fantastic to hear. Yeah. And that fuel tank that's over here, I see it's close to the sidewalk. Does that look like we're gonna have to tear up a sidewalk and relay it? You think?
If it'd be appropriate, we're getting ready to do the Lane County job, so it kind of maybe coincide with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Any questions for me? Okay. Next up is Public Works Report. Mr. Baker?
Council, good evening. First, for last month, streets and parks, as most of you are aware, the gate is not open all the way at the Cover Bridge. We did start opening that again after the restriction got lifted on COVID, encourage all the gathering. It opens about halfway, which isn't an issue for people going in and out, but it'd be an issue for opening and closing since the volunteer thing on the after hour side of things. We have reached out to Lane County. In doing so, We realized that we still have an expired IGA with them that expired back in August of '09. So I reached out to Lane County and have been in contact with the gentleman who takes care of that. He did send me the outdated IGA, but still waiting for the most recent bridge inspection report that was done by ODOT. Everything's still in pretty decent repair, so probably be bringing that back to you guys at the work session, just to go over it. There's a lot of language in there and some things I think we need to look at before we proceed with the additional IGA. The plumbing is repaired at the Rolling Rock Park restrooms, so the restrooms are reopened. The Paul Fisher restroom is still closed at this time. City Administrator and myself did have a conversation with Parks about it, including in the budget to maybe do the vandalism free, so to speak, fixtures in there. They are rather expensive. We replaced 2 toilets in that fixture just in the last 18 months. So that'd be a good way to go, but it is a pretty hefty cost. So we're going to plan that. We'll come back to you guys with some other things in the park side. But yeah, bathrooms are open at both parks. Water treatment plant. City staff replaced the UPS, the PLC. That's the uninterrupted power supply. This was the cause of the issues, and during the 2 scheduled outages, we actually lost the PLC and were unable to make water very temporarily. So this was a couple $100 fix, staffed it in-house, and during the scheduled outage we had last week, sometime Thursday, I think it was, it worked flawlessly. So good thing on that. Staff is working on leak detection citywide. We have a staff member who is phenomenal at acoustic ground miking, and we have found 2 confirmed leaks and 5 other possibles. The rain in the background noise is a little heavy when we were trying to finish it up the other day. So, and then of course, next we'll get a list and get the contract. Back trucks out, we'll get it fixed. So. 250 meters in total have been replaced in the new cam strips. So it's just over 50%. We currently have 454 that need replaced, not counting the new homes. And 250 have been replaced. So we're chugging right along on that. We've got all the 100 that we approved for the CIP installed and working good. I'm still working on the report. I told you guys I generate. We need a little bit of data just to show good comparative data. It wasn't really working too good with 100 meters just because it's only like 18% of the system. So bring that back to you guys at a later date when we get a little more solid data and some summertime flows that'll really make a big difference. Wastewater treatment plant, February 23rd, 2022. As you guys know, the city received the notice of civil penalty and assessment and order from DEQ. This was the letter referring to the RAS pump failure, which caused the BOD exceedance, and also included the lift station overflow that happened due to high rain in November 2021. So we had an option to appeal or respond to it. The city administrator and myself had some discussions with Civil West. Well, the penalty is $2,360.50. I have it here on the staff report. The penalty seems appropriate for what it is. You know, we do have a legal permit to document down there. However, we did not agree with some of the wordings they used in their findings. The way they assess a fine is it's a formula based. So what it is, how it happened, how we tried to fix it, and the severity of it, and it comes up with a dollar amount. So the lift station overflow was the $1,500 of this fine. That is unfortunate. It's only happened 2 other times in the last 10 years, but it's from heavy rain. As you guys know, we're working on an I&I plan as part of the stormwater master plan. So we did some manhole inspecting, we did all the I&I testing. So we have some areas of improvement that hopefully reduce that risk in the future. The BOD exceedance, we believe was caused by the RAS pumps. Brought that to you guys. We replaced the RAS pumps. On the BOD exceedance, they used a term negligence, and that is what we're challenging. So we responded with the letter after the city administrator and myself worked with the engineers, saying that we are agreeing to the penalty. We're not contesting the penalty. We do not agree with the verbiage used, the negligence. We clearly weren't negligence. We're doing an I&I report, and we got back into permit as soon as we could. We spent $38,000 replacing the pump. So when we hear back from that, they did confirm that they received the letter by email. So I'll bring it back to you guys as soon as we hear back and go from there on that.
Is there a chance that they will reduce the fine because of it?
So
If they accept that?
Yeah,
Even though
if they change the terminology. So for example, the negligence is a 4, the multiplication of factor of 4. So if they said, it's likely to happen, but unpreventable, just to give you an example, let's say it went to a 3 or a 2, then it would clearly change it. But it would change both of them because, one's related to the RAS pump issue and the other one is related to the overflow at the lift station. So in theory, it could go down. For us, the most important thing was to get that off because on the record, it would show that staff was negligent and the city was negligent. And to my ability and to everybody else, that's not true. We sat there for the 6 hours of tapping, trying to get every bit of water out of the lift station. So, but yeah, in them accepting that and changing it, it would have a potential to reduce the fine. Yeah. So, any other questions on the DEQ stuff?
I got a few questions. Are you finished?
I got two more things.
Guys have those.
Okay, the remaining parts to install a second RAS pump showed up late week before last, and we went ahead and installed it and have the other RAS pump. So just to give you guys a timeline, we ordered that last year, June 6th, rushed it, and you guys approved it at the city council meeting. The pump came in about September 5th, but we're still waiting on the VFD, which came from overseas, and the power cord, which is very specific to it. So, and we noted all that in our letter to DEQ to show them that we did everything in our power. We paid a rush fee. So that's good. We're both up and running. They work great. We've remained in permit ever since July of last year. And then lastly, I already spoken this a little bit. Civil West was on site Thursday, March 3rd at 10 p.m. and worked all the way through the wee hours of the night to do manhole inspections. This is part of the I&I study. So we had a heavy rain event on the 2nd. And this was to see the water that gets into the sewer system from the ground. So not from people's downspouts or storm events while it's raining, but this is after it rained. And we found some pretty good stuff. Me and Hunter both participated with them until about one in the morning just to see what the process, and they're going to make some recommended changes, some ones that are pretty quick that staff can do in-house with little capital cost and have a significant impact. And then of course, they'll include it in the wastewater plan and the CIP project moving forward for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Yeah.
The gate that won't go up and down, any trouble with vandalism in the covered bridge or people staying in at night, or do you have a clue?
We have not
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah.
The
The damage is caused by vandalism, which is originally what caused it. We noted it during the bridge lighting ceremony. So we fixed it best we could to get open because we want people to be able to see that, it's getting to be a time of weather where people like to go down there and take the covered bridge tour. So, and that's part of the reason we reached out to the county. The last quote we received on that, replace that gate in 2016 was about $35,000.
yeah, that seems right.
And it's solid aluminum, so it's only going to be double that, I'm sure.
You mentioned about the leaks. Or did we do that in-house or out of contract? I knew we were going to buy some equipment.
So this is, we have not purchased that leak detection equipment
Okay.
that we had planned to in the capital improvement. We actually chose to do the C camera.
Okay.
But no, this was done in-house with the equipment we actually already had. And both times we've had the professional leak detection company here that we hired, this staff member has been right by his side, and he showed him everything. And the very last leak we had in November on Cannon that we fixed, Hunter actually located first, and we put a spray paint mark on it. But because we were spending money, we spent the $200 to call Bill to come out and do it, and he was right on. We cut the ground, open it up, and it was right there. So that felt pretty good. So, yeah.
I agree. And the write-ups you got, I know there's a inspection, annual, whatever, they periodic inspections you're done, and if you do poorly, they come back more quickly. Or is any of this DEQ stuff that you're doing, they don't affect your frequency of inspections?
So this event, the BOD event, not the lift station, was during the rain. The event actually happened while the regulator was on site doing the 3-year review. And with full transparency, he knew we were already in communication with him about it. It does not change anything.
Okay.
They're supposed to come out every 3 years. This last time was 7, just because of the backwater stuff. The water side of things is the one you're referring to. So if you do outstanding, it's 5 years. If you do okay, or good, it's 3. If you're not doing so good, they're going to see you about every 6 months.
Yeah.
So
5 years when I
and
was.
that one's coming up. So yep, that should be the end of this year for a 5-year. Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else for?
Okay, thank
Take
you.
it, Max. Next on, there's a police report. I think everybody can see that. Few citations. Next up, old business. We have a long-term residential right-of-way agreement with Lowell Investment Properties LLC. And we're going to open this thing up with a public hearing. And I got a piece of paper to read for public hearings. We have 3 of them tonight. I'll only read it once, but I'll reference to, it includes a reference to all 3 of them. Okay. Public hearings. Oregon statutes require the council to hold public hearings on matters where the public can comment. Oregon land use laws require cities to hold public hearings on certain types of land use decisions. Oregon local government's budget laws require cities to hold public hearings where the public can comment on the budget before adoption. Public hearings are dedicated to items of open discussion, open consideration, are heard within a regular meeting for which public input is desired. The public will be allowed to make presentations to the council and give a reasonable opportunity to be heard concerning the items. Members of the council may, if they wish, ask questions of the presenters following your presentation. The main function of the council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of the council at the public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed topics. We will then close the public hearing and the council will discuss the matters and render its decision. Okay. We'll put the regular session in recess at 7:24. We'll open the public hearing at 7:24. First item to be heard is the long-term residential right-of-way use agreement with Lowell Investment Properties LLC. Mr. Connell, you want to report on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me try to pull something up real quick.
Okay.
Okay, this item is an agreement with Lowell Investment Properties LLC for a long-term residential right-of-way use agreement. This pertains to the public access way between 68 West 2nd Street and the post office. The right-of-way agreement was reviewed at your last council meeting, and the council directions to staff was to review this at tonight's meeting to give an opportunity for interested members of the public to appear and to give comment and review this matter. To that end, we have advertised for the public hearing. We've sent letters to everybody in the surrounding area. I also had a meeting with our city legal counsel today that gave some information that I believe is relevant to this topic, related to the nature of the public access way. In the year 1910, when the first plat was filed for the city of Lowell, this public access way was recorded and dedicated to the public for public use and public access in perpetuity, much as our public roads and streets are. What that means is that any member of the public who needs to use this to get from one side to the other has the ability to do so. Now, our city ordinances and processes give the city the ability to regulate the usage of this access way so that we can ensure that everybody who needs to use it is able to do so. For instance, if somebody wanted to park a camper there and obstruct the public access way, we have the ability to regulate it. But we don't, as a city, have the ability to say somebody can't or can use it. With that in mind, the agreement that's on the agenda tonight, if approved, I believe would be advantageous to the city. It does not give any rights or abilities away of the city. It doesn't take away any rights of the public to be able to use this access way. And in fact, it gives the city assurance by the applicant that they are going to maintain this access way in perpetuity. If action is not taken to approve the agreement tonight, members of the public are still able to access this public access way. So I hope that information helps.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Cottle? Next, we have people that wanting to speak on this. We have anybody want to speak for? And then we'll ask for anybody want to speak against. I don't see anybody signed up for. I have a Bob Kaiser for long-term right of way who'd like to speak. Bob, if you want to come up to the table.
Thank you very much. Good evening. When you asked if there was any questions or not, I wasn't sure if that was directed to the council or the public, such as myself. I do have a question for
Okay.
Mr. Cottle, if I may. Where does the access road, according to your council meeting that you referenced today, where does that access road end today?
What access road are we talking about?
The right of way, alleyway, whatever you're calling it.
The public access ends right here.
Okay, so it does not go through.
That's correct.
You made the statement, I believe, unless I misunderstood you, that it does go through and it should be allowed to go through. So I just wanted to clear that up. So
I don't believe Mr. Mayor made a statement to that effect. This is the access way right here.
So the point is you can still get to.
It goes under the other property, I
it
think is
goes-
what he
So you
says.
can still get to the other property.
I think if you were to draw a line there from that roughly 60-degree angle straight right where his cursor is, the access road, right of way, alleyway, whatever, stops right there.
Yes, that's correct. Right
That's
here at this
correct.
property line.
And that property on this side of that is owned by Lowell Investment Properties.
This is a private easement that the applicant has already recorded.
Owned by Lowell Investment Properties.
That's correct.
Okay, that was my statement. So my point simply is that it does not go through, okay, to the market parking lot or the easement that you just pointed out. It stops there. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the city in and of itself can't decide to give people access beyond that line which you drew with your cursor, because that property is not owned by the city.
Okay.
Except for the easement.
Okay, is that clear? To everyone that
Well, I guess for
Under
me,
the property, I think. what he
that
said.
doesn't. I mean, it ends there, but that doesn't mean nobody can cross that line.
well, for
Yeah,
example, if just for the purpose of discussion, if Lowell Investment Properties decided they didn't want anyone to cross that line onto their property, then it would end right there, and it could. Lowell Investment Properties could put up a fence right there in that gap that you see there to keep that from being a through street, or anyone else who happened to own that property.
That's city right away. If we can't.
My point simply is that long vertical rectangular right of way that we're looking at there has never gone through. It's never been a through street. It has never gone through to Shore Drive or before that Pangler Drive or any place else. It has always stopped right there. Frankly, it's always stopped right there, I believe, from the research that we've done since the city was originally platted in 1910. That right of way has never gone through. It has never been a through street. That's my point. I just wanted to clarify that because it was not what I was hearing Jeremy say.
I guess it's just that, well, we aren't supposed to.
Your point's well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We
Thank you
can.
very much. So I'll proceed. We submitted several page document to Mr. Cottle earlier this week to be available for council Do I need to read that to get it into the record, or can I assume that you all have access or have had access to it?
It's in the packet.
You've all read it.
Okay. I want to acknowledge a couple of people, if I may. I am Bob Kaiser. My wife and I, Leslie Dixon Kaiser, do in fact own 68 West Second Street. But I feel like I'm representing the Dixon Erickson family here. We've had input from Dan Erickson, whom I think some of you know, Daryl Erickson, who I think some of you know, in writing of this letter. So I feel like although I do own the property, I feel like I'm kind of a spokesman for the family. At the risk of going through this whole thing, let me just kind of summarize it if I may. As I said earlier, Ms. Harris, since the city was platted, we agreed completely with the way Jeremy characterized it. In fact, I quoted it in the document, that the alleyways and streets were meant to be public in perpetuity, or forever was the word that was used in the plat. We certainly agree with that. At the time the city was platted, however, the railroad owned property there, which if you could put that diagram back up. The imaginary line that we've been talking about there that would close off that right of way through traffic was along with the one at an angle, was the boundary as close as I can ascertain of the railroad property. We're not exactly sure, I'm not exactly sure when the railroad vacated that property, but it was vacated sometime obviously after 1910. Lots were platted there, homes were built there, and I believe when Lowell Investment Properties purchased the property, there were at least one, if not two or more traders living there on that property. It was private property. So my point being is, since it was platted in 1910, that right of way has never gone through. The house that's built there, that is there today, was built in 1946 by Milo Dixon and Forrest Dixon, longtime residents of Lowell area here. Some of you might remember Milo owned the 76 gas station in town. Since they built that home, it's been occupied and or owned by the Dixon Erickson family ever since. That access road has never gone through. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it's since 1946, it's been seen as basically a driveway to the property. The Dixon Erickson family, Jerry mentioned this as a positive for Lowell Investment Properties, which I agree would be. But the Dixon Erickson family has been maintaining that access road since 1946 at no cost to the city. They've been keeping vegetation down, they've been rocking it, they've been grading it, they've been picking up trash. If you blow that up in the lower left-hand corner of the post office parking lot, there are two trash bins. I'm assuming they're in that picture that are there tonight. People come and dump trash there and throw it under the right of way. They have for years. Again, the Dixon Erickson family have picked up the trash, disposed of the trash. There's been concrete, asphalt, oil drums over the years dumped onto that property. And again, the Dixon Erickson family have maintained this since 1946 at no cost to the city. Marla and Lawrence Dixon are the current residents of 68 West Second. They are getting up in years. They do have health problems. Neither of them are able to drive anymore. They're visited multiple times a week by caregivers. Sometimes they're family caregivers, sometimes not. Since Lowell Investment Properties have purchased and acquired the land where the trailers used to be, they have opened up that area to through traffic. And it is being used as through traffic. We were there today. It's obvious if you drive by, It's being used. There were at least 2 cars drove by while we were there. According to Marla, every morning about 6 o'clock in the morning, people go down the alleyway there. She believes they're going to work at the Bridgetown Market. I don't know where they're going to work. It's disconcerting to them because, again, since 1946, which predates their marriage, I might point out, they've considered that their driveway, their property. So they don't fully understand, and Lawrence primarily has a hard time understanding why there's people in his driveway. It's not just cars, it's trucks, it's delivery vehicles, it's construction vehicles. It is young people on ATVs and motorbikes. But the point is that none of this occurred prior to the opening up of that property by Lowell Investment Properties to allow it to go all the way through. I could go on. I'll just summarize this way. We believe a precedent has been set through their maintenance of the property since 1946. We believe they've been good citizens in maintaining that property for the city of Lowell. We see no public benefit. Sorry, Mr. Cottle, but we see no public benefit to opening up this right away. We see a benefit to Lowell Investment Properties, certainly. But we see no public benefit to this. So to us, it seems like we're adversely affecting 2 senior citizens to positively affect an investment company. For apparently one house, from what we understand. There are other abnormalities that we saw in the application that we looked through. We're not convinced that Lowell Investment Properties has ever even applied for access to the county. If you can blow that back up or zoom back away. Today, the access, as you can see it there at the bottom of the screen, to North Shore Drive. My understanding for Mr. Cottle is that that's not a legal access. That was the access that was being used, I believe, by the previous homeowner there in a single wide motorhome. But as you can see, it provides total open access from from West 2nd Street onto North Shore Drive. We would like to see that blocked off. We believe that, in fact, a better access, if I was going to be a homeowner or a renter for the property that is going to build there, I would not want to drive down the alleyway to get to my property. I would see that the access off of North Shore Drive would be a much better access. Trying to think if I've left anything out. Yeah. I guess with that, I'll just stop and see if you have any questions for me.
Any questions?
Thank you for the opportunity to address.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else wanting to speak? Public hearing is closed at 7:41. And regular session is reconvened 7:41. When I look at that, the little red thing at the end, that's an easement to get on his property to be able to get a permit to construct, correct? If I understand this right.
Yes, and it's in the
Because
packet.
he doesn't have one off of North Shore.
It's in the packet. Let me
Or
see
the
if I can
Penguin,
find it.
yeah.
Okay, right here.
Yeah.
Let me just share the screen. This is a private access easement. When the applicant first approached the city last year, we asked the applicant if they would be willing to file a private access easement so that they could guarantee access from parcel 2 over parcel 1 to access the alleyway.
And that runs with the property.
Correct.
So just to be clear, the way I understood what the legality of it is that this isn't ours to give or keep. It's public. So in my mind, the only thing we'd be approving is the agreement with LLC to maintain it.
That's great.
That's our decision. That's what our decision is. It's not whether people can have access to it or not. They have the legal right to have access and use it. It's unfortunate, and I mean, it's in regard to how it impacts that home. But it's legally, that's not our decision. So even going through doesn't matter, because it's just that it ends at that property, and that property owner goes on to his property from there. So I don't see how it not going through makes any difference there. If somebody's got a different view, tell me, because that's just how I'm seeing it. But it's what I understand, that, we don't legally have the right to tell somebody they can't use it.
That's what I was thinking. Either everybody can use it or nobody can use it.
Well,
but
except we can't
but
even
the
tell
fact
them
that it's
not to
public
use it.
easement,
Yeah,
it's
not.
everybody.
And so that's the way I understood that our council told us, or our legal counsel told us, that we don't really have that decision to make. The only decision we have to make is whether we want an agreement with LLC on maintaining it. Am I
That's correct.
understanding that correctly? So. I mean,
Yes, he has an
Certainly.
easement and there's an alleyway and it's a public alleyway, so.
Yeah,
there's
and I
No way
don't,
we can
yeah.
block, we
No,
can't
there's
block the
nothing-
public alleyway, so.
And that's why 68 West Second doesn't need an easement, because it's a public access way, and that's how they're accessing their
Yep.
garage. Yeah. And that's why nobody can block it.
that's right, nobody can block it, so that means,
But even if it
Parking
did,
is an issue
anybody
too.
could drive in and out of there, forward, backward, walk,
Yeah.
whatever.
Great.
so unfortunately, we don't have the power to
To say you,
to
but
say,
not you.
yeah, exactly. To anybody in town, or anybody.
And the county controls who gets onto North Shore
Mhm,
or Penguin at that point.
mhm, mhm. Did I not understand that the county directed LLC to pursue this in regard to it being more likely?
To the best of my recollection, and the applicant is here tonight, he could speak to that if I'm misstating, but when the applicant first approached the county about getting access off of there and making it legal, they encouraged the applicant to come to the city first. And again, like I said, they're here tonight and can correct me if I'm misremembering.
And experience has shown that the county will not add access points to that road,
And that's
particularly from a residential.
right. And that's exactly why they came this direct.
They have their
this
own
route. That I just,
storing system or whatever, and it's a.
That's what we had on 205 Main.
Yeah.
Try to get access out this way.
Right. I've not seen it happen.
How do you want to proceed?
You guys like it in speak, but You guys are telling it, like it is. County requested that we get the easement. Our preference is off North Shore. They said they can't guarantee that.
I just wanted to make a point that you had looked into it. And certainly we are concerned about everybody involved. It's not, it's just not our choice.
We want there to be good neighbors.
Yeah,
I was just surprised that there wasn't any access to 68 West Main from, I mean, West Second from West Second. I mean, when the whole thing started, because I don't think that garage was original. So, so
well,
that's what happens with old
I was
towns that
gonna
don't
say.
go in with one big master plan.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Somebody probably just moved in there and started using the road or anything.
Well, and they have a right to use it.
Well, I mean, there
I mean,
is
off the
sewer
county road.
line underneath there, is that right? Or,
Yeah, they're public utilities.
yeah, so it would have been there regardless if
Right.
it wasn't constructed for a driveway.
No, I realize that.
Yeah.
I just, yeah,
But that, again, that's legal access. You can use that.
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody in the
Mhm.
property to do,
Mhm.
put your own in. That's-
Is it your intent to keep pursuing an access on the lots?
We will continue to use North Shore until the county says that.
And if you were to get to a situation where you did get access from the county, would you consider closing the other access from?
We got permanent access on North Shore. We would consider it, yes.
That would come back to the county or the city.
Not,
No, he
No.
would just close it off of his property.
it would
It's
dead
his
end.
property that's sitting there at
It
the
would,
end
it
of
would
it.
dead end if he got access off of North Shore. And he wanted to close off the access from Second, it would be a dead end alley.
And then he'd have to undo that easement.
Right.
That's the only
Correct.
thing
If
without-
you wanted to be, but he would have the
Right,
capabilities
it's
to do
private
that.
property.
Have to come back to the
He
city.
could
But it could be done.
But it could be done, yeah. Well,
So may I ask a question?
What's
Am I
that?
out of order, or-
No.
Not yet.
Let's- I hear a question.
Does that mean that Lowell Investment Properties is going to pursue the access from the county?
We've already pursued it, they said no.
So, okay. I
That's the
respect
whole
the
reason
reason.
this thing happened.
Sorry.
I mean, if the, I think what we're saying, if the county came by and changed their ways or something and we
So
were
we
notified of
contacted
that.
the county, and it's in the 5-page letter that we submitted. to
Right,
the council.
right.
And I'm certainly not an expert, but the county guided us to chapters 15 and 16 of Lake County Code. And in those chapters are very specific sections of highways throughout the county and roads where they do have special considerations for access, such as you mentioned, Councilman, as well. And North Shore Drive through Lowell is not one of those areas. It's not currently identified. So again, I'm certainly not an expert, but that indicates to me that either A, they haven't come across this before, or B, it's maybe there is a chance for access. I just want to know before I leave tonight whether or not that's going to be pursued. And I think what I'm hearing from Lowell Investment Properties is that's already been pursued. So I don't know how we ever get to Councilman Satis' question.
I think from what I'm hearing from all of this is that they want to build a building on that property. In order to build a building on that property, they need an access easement, okay? And also what I'm hearing from them is that their primary way into that property is still going to be off North Shore. It's not going to be up the alley. They're going to, if there's construction down, they'll bring the trucks in through the, off the main highway into there. And that will, and I guess he has workers that's working there and they'll use the off of North Shore. So what I'm hearing, if I'm reading it right, is that they're looking to get the alley. They're willing to improve it to get the alley. And but their main use will come off of North Shore versus coming up Second Street. Now, there may be other people using that from that neighborhood to go through there and get back out onto to miss the stop signs and stuff like that. And whether he gets his right of way easement or whatever, those people are still going to be doing that. So that's not going to impact that one way or the other. And from what the legal person tends to say is that we really don't have the, I guess, authority to shut that street down and close it off. And so, you know, I would like to hope that you'd be good neighbors. And whenever he has construction done, he's not running the big equipment through that street. And I'm sure if he's put a driveway in there with rocks, he doesn't want it torn up either. So I think that the way I'm seeing it is it's change, but I don't think it's going to be traumatic to the people. I know there's old people in there and they're probably going to be concerned about it, but I don't see them abusing it. I don't believe. So that's the way, that's what, for an outside person looking in on this, that's the way I feel. So.
Yeah, because if the county doesn't give them access off of North Shore and they close that off, because they could come by one day and say, you can't use this anymore, then they've got to, then they can use that alley.
And I
as
don't
any
see the,
public person can.
I don't see the county doing that. There's too many little roads.
Well,
going
they
up
may
and off
not,
like
but
that.
the
I
point is,
think that probably it's been there for
LLC's trying
50
to do it.
years.
They're trying to do it legally
Yeah,
and
the
make
county
sure.
could do it.
The problem is, it's not a legal
No,
access,
that's
so you
true.
can't build a house on a residential lot in our city because of that
checks
legal
that
access,
box.
whereas this is the legal access
Yeah.
that allows for another
Yeah.
home to be constructed in
Right.
Lowell.
And he's got the
So-
easement on that little red
Yeah.
chink there. So this just adds to that, just to
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean,
Hopefully
it's
the
a
county
solidify it.
won't come by and close that off. but- Or they'll give you access. Unfortunate when things have always been one way. Okay, so do we want to
Make a motion.
approve the agreement?
Okay.
I don't have it up in front of me. I would make a motion to approve the agreement for the care of that alleyway. with
Long-term
LLC.
residential right away.
Yeah, thank you. Motion to approve that.
These are on the agenda.
Sorry, I don't have,
Okay.
I did my thing went down. I didn't have it in front of me.
It's not on there for you.
I got another question.
Sure.
Before we proceed with this. So, I think that, so what I'm seeing here is that, Lowell Investment Properties is doing this so they can check the box so they can build on this, on the lot. We have an adjacent neighbor who's concerned with traffic flowing through there. It would seem to me that, and according to Mr. Kaiser, that there's been some other folks traveling on that, and going through into the parking lot for Bridgetown that's there, the parking area, I should say. But I think the concern is are people going to be traveling in a regular manner all the way through to circumnavigate the stop signs to basically jump around Bridgetown, jump back on North Shore Drive. I would think that is, we have a lot of people that try to circumnavigate Moss Street by coming down my street and they speed. And the one thing that keeps them from speeding is the speed bumps that we have on D Street. I would propose that it's not a far leap to say that there's some safety concerns with the clearances and the standoffs from this alleyway, that if people are not driving in a safe manner, which, you know, we have the police here a certain amount of hours per month, and that to me, there's a possibility that people could be going through their pretty rates of speed, and if it's beyond just the people that are traveling to the development like the Martinis are doing, or possibly some employees that might be parking in the parking lot, that maybe some kind of speed control device on this alleyway to motivate people to continue the normal path of traffic, which would be on the Moss Street and around to North Shore, might be advantageous in terms of a safety, safer situation for this right away, for this alley.
We have a sign. We could do that. Public Works could put that up.
Well, I would
He
propose
means
to go,
barrier type things.
I would propose even to go so far as a speed bump of some sort or two on this, to just kind of get people to focus to go around the other way versus using this as a shortcut. So I don't think this is something, I think this is an even worse situation than D Street in terms of a shortcut. The houses on D Street are set back significantly further than probably either one of these residences are going to be in terms of this. I think this, in terms of shortcuts and Lowell, would be probably more dangerous than anything else I've seen.
Jim, you had.
Yes.
So when we put together the downtown master plan, one of the things in the design was narrowing the street. And as you narrow that street, traffic tends to slow. And if you look right on that property line, there's a fence that comes really, really close, and then a curb on this side. And it is very narrow to get through. It is not a street width. And we have never seen anyone fly through. And he's talking about traffic that I've never seen. And I know our employees are coming up North Shore. I come up North Shore. There's been once or twice when I've left and gone through the alley and said, oh, the traffic in there is very, very.
Do you think if this gets improved, there's a chance more people will see it as an avenue of traffic path?
I think if we post a sign, not a through street or something like that, and then go from there.
Because
As far
technically
as
it's not
additional
a through
expense
street.
goes, I don't, personally, I don't see it.
Yeah,
Especially
Well-
when you get that bottleneck right there where the two properties.
Well, once you put a house there, you don't want people speeding across your
Yeah,
yard either.
That's what I'm
So
saying. It's not just for the other residents, it's for your.
it's gonna be both places. Don't want people
I was
speeding
gonna
through
say,
there.
I don't see it, you can't really call it a through street because of all of that. It's not a
It's not a
through
street.
street. People aren't gonna try and,
Because it's going over private property.
yeah, exactly. It goes on to private property, so I don't think that's gonna be an issue.
We're not talking about improving it.
Mhm.
I mean, you're not talking about paving it and all that sort of stuff. 'Cause
Not
it's
at
a-
this point.
Well, yeah, I don't think you'd want to with a sewer line underneath it.
Mm-mm. It's gotta have public work access.
Bob,
Technically, it's an alleyway, so it's
That's,
city.
Bob,
I was just gonna say that,
It's public.
from the, I appreciate all the comments, I really do, but maybe there's a light at the end of this tunnel yet, I'm not sure. If you look down the alleyway from West Second Street, that fence coming in there is our fence, and it does appear to be a bottleneck. But the distance between the corner of that fence and the edge of the right of way is exactly the same all the way up, it's 20 feet. So it's no different in the middle of the easement than it is back there, what we're all envisioning or calling the bottleneck. I just wanted to make that clear. It doesn't narrow down, it's the same distance the whole length all the way through.
The difference is, yes, the width does not change, but it's open up and down. The fence does create that.
That's correct, there is
Yeah.
a fence.
Yeah. I would like, I think the sign is a good idea for everybody involved, for both people that are interested in this driveway.
not a through street.
Yeah.
Type thing. Yeah. We can buy those.
yeah, that would be. that would be
So you can get those.
Make sure they're not going in the backyard. Okay, do you want me to restate that?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with, on long-term residential right-of-way use agreement with Lowell Investment Properties.
We have a motion, we have a second.
1 second.
Okay. We have a motion second to approve the long-term residential right-of-way use agreement with the Lowell Investment Properties LLC. We have further discussion? Questions? All those in favor of long-term residential right-of-way use agreement with the Lowell Investment Properties LLC signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, new business. Lake Town tentative subdivision plat approval. Okay. We'll recess at 8:02 for regular session. And we'll open the public hearing at 8:02. Mr. Cottle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to Henry Hurley, Associate Planner with Lane Council of Governments. I have the presentation pulled up on the screen here. Take it away, Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Jeremy, and good evening, Council. So my name is Henry Hurley. I'll be providing a staff report tonight. Is there some feedback going on there, Jeremy?
No, sir, I'll get on our side.
Okay. So the overview of the presentation, I'll discuss some items to note up front. I'll give an overview of the proposal of the subdivision, and then I'll discuss some of the conditions of approval that were being recommended tonight. Next slide. Some items of note. So lots 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, and 16 all contain slopes of 15% or greater. Therefore, the city's hillside development standards will apply to those lots. A geotech report has been completed by the applicant and submitted to the record. DSL did review the subdivision and they looked for areas of impacts to wetlands. They did not find any. Therefore, no state permit is required. Drainage will largely be handled by the city's existing infrastructure. The city does have capacity to handle the stormwater collection south of First Street. Wetlow Drive will be improved to a pavement width of 28 feet and a full dedication width of 60 feet of right-of-way. Sidewalk, curb, and gutter will be installed. A new street proposed to be called Jazzy Loop will be constructed, and that will serve the internal lots. And then the issue of on-street parking was discussed at the Planning Commission hearing, and I'd like to go into that a little more in depth. Yeah, you can go back one screen, Jeremy. There you go. So as I stated, so during the Planning Commission hearing, the issue of on-street parking was discussed. It was brought up by Planning Commission. Public Works had communicated to staff that a paved width of 28 feet can accommodate parking on both sides of the street. There are several instances of this occurring already in Lowell at this time. The fire chief did express some concern about the ability to get a fire engine down the street if cars are parked on both sides. Staff had told Planning Commission we would look into this issue and then report back to City Council tonight. So from staff's perspective, the issue may be irrelevant because Lowell has adopted off-street parking standards for 1- and 2-family dwellings. For a dwelling that contains 2 or more bedrooms, 2 off-street parking spaces are required. And this is in the form of a driveway that will be included with any residential development. The fire chief did issue comment dated March 8th after researching this issue further. The fire chief would like to see on-street parking prohibited on at least one side of the street for narrow streets. But since it was not brought up with previous developments, it would not benefit anyone other than the fire district. So the fire chief believes that the issue warrants a larger community discussion at a later time outside of this particular land use application. Next slide. So the proposal is for a 16-lot subdivision. The property is owned by Jerry and Julie Valencia. It is zoned R1, which is residential. It's currently vacant. It consists largely of wooded and tree areas and grasses. The property is adjacent to previous subdivision developments such as Sunbridge and Wetlow developments. It's essentially an infill of a residential area within the larger subdivisions. Next slide. So this is the tentative plat for review tonight. It is sheet 1. This is the plat that you're being asked to review and approve. So Planning Commission did review this plat and recommended that City Council approve it. What you'll notice here is Wetlow Drive being widened to a right-of-way width of 60 feet. You'll notice there are also 3 lots on the southern portion here, lots 14, 15, and 16. This is also part of the subdivision. And you'll see the new loop road called Jazzy Loop This will be built with sidewalk, curb, and gutter on both sides, and this will serve the internal lots. Next slide. Sheet 2 is the preliminary utility plan. There is an existing 8-inch water line on the west and north sides of Wetlow. The water line will be extended and connected to all lots. This water line can serve elevation up to 880 feet. Also, there is an existing 8-inch sewer line in Wetlow Drive and will be extended and connected to all lots. Running along the southern boundary of lots 1, 14, 15, and 16 is an existing 14-foot wide easement. And also each lot will have a 7-foot public utility easement. And next slide. This is sheet 3, the preliminary grading plan. One thing to note about the grading plan is that drainage on lots 1 through 4 naturally drain to the southwest, so they would effectively drain off of the subdivision. The city engineer raised this concern and the applicant is aware. A more detailed grading plan will be required before construction commences and has been added as a condition of approval. The applicant's engineer is aware of this issue and has a solution in that a trench drain can be installed and connected to the city's storm drain system. And next slide. Staff do recommend that City Council accept Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. Staff recommend that City Council approve the subdivision subject to the findings and conditions contained in the staff report. And next, I'm going to go over the conditions of approval. Next slide. Condition 1 is the need for that final grading plan to be in conformance with the city's grading standards. Condition 2 just gets at the need for detailed sidewalk plans to be submitted to the city before construction. Next slide. Related to condition 2, condition 3 is the need for the street construction plans to be submitted and reviewed. Condition 4 is for the street name signs, those plans to be reviewed. Condition 5 is the requirement for street lights to be installed. Next slide. Condition 6 is that final grading plan showing those drainage details on lots 1 through 4. Condition 7 is for a DEQ permit. This is required for any site disturbance of greater than 1 acre. Condition 8 is the requirement that all water distribution lines be extended along the full length of the property's frontage along the right-of-way. Condition 9, or next slide, we'll go to condition 9. Related to the condition 8, it's for all the extension and installation of all public water system components to be reviewed by the city. Condition 10 is all sewer lines to be extended along the full length of the property's frontage along the right-of-way. Condition 11 is for that final utility plan to be reviewed by the city administrator or their designee. Condition 12, this gets back at the hillside development standards, is for development on those lots to be in conformance with the city's adopted hillside development standards. And next slide, please. Condition 13 is related to the hillside development standards. It's the requirement to submit final copies of each individual lot survey and development engineering plans for lots that fall under the hillside development standards. Condition 14 is related to condition 13. At the time of purchase, each lot owner has been provided copies of the respective individual lot survey, geotech report, and development engineering plans. Proof may be in the form of a standard real estate affidavit that states that the purchaser of those lots has received that information. Condition 15 is an important one. It's that all dedications are made on the final plat, and that 60-foot right-of-way of Wetlow Drive is dedicated to the city. And next slide, please. Condition 16 is a requirement for the city and developer to enter into an improvement agreement. This is pretty standard. And 17, related to 16, is the security agreement has been reached by the city and the applicant. This is usually in the form of a performance bond. And next slide, please. And I can answer any questions you may have, and the applicant and their engineer are also here tonight to answer any questions you may have. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We have any public comment on the subdivision right now? I have Ms. Roberts and 456 East First Street. You want to please have a seat?
Okay. Hello, my name is Rihanna Roberts. I'm not entirely sure how to properly address the council, so I hope that I do so respectfully. I have questions for the council members tonight regarding the proposal built on the lot that we're currently talking about. My husband, Corey Roberts, and I bought our home on First Street about 4 years ago. And as most of you know, he's grown up here his entire life. And although I'm newer to the community, I instantly fell in love with all of the small town charm that it has. Our first summer here, I called on Mr. Richard Johnson. I believe his family owns that property prior to Jerry Valencia buying it, as well as the vast majority of the land in Lowell. And we had inquired about buying some of the lot behind us, as I know had been done previously on the other side of First Street. A lot of the families there have been able to buy a 1/4 acre or so from him of that land. And he had told me that unfortunately the city had his hands tied and he could not divide that lot and sell it. It had to be sold entirely as a whole. And at the time and currently now, we didn't have $300,000 to spend on that huge lot and buy it as a whole. So my first question really is, why is it that now the land can be divided 13 to 16, counting the smaller portion on the other side, times to build new homes and bring new families to Lowell, but it couldn't be divided for families already living here? I understand that the community needs to grow, but what I don't understand is why families who are already living here, working here, volunteering here, and positively impacting our community aren't given the options to grow our existing homes now. And my second question is, if this goes through, if this subdivision is built, will the restrictions be lifted on what we're able to do to our homes so that we can find a way to regain the gorgeous view that we fell in love with and the potential $50,000 in equity that each homeowner who lives on that side of First Street will be losing if this subdivision is built?
I don't think I'm aware of either one of those issues. Are you?
Well, I'm aware on the other side of First Street that Mia had sold some of her property there, but that wasn't a platted subdivision. I believe that this,
You're below Sunridge, right? Are you?
Yeah,
in-
so 456, it's the older yellow house. It's built in like 52. It's got the big oak tree
Right.
up front.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're right there. So this directly backs up onto
Right.
our property.
Yeah.
And so that was just my question. Why aren't we given the opportunity to buy some of this property? Even looking at the proposal that was submitted, I don't know if we'll be given the opportunity to buy any of those plots or if it's all going to be built upon. But even looking at it, if I'm reading it correctly, there's 2 houses that are going to split what's behind us in half. So even still, even if we wanted to buy part of it, it wouldn't be behind our house. It would be up up or down from our lot, if that makes sense. So I just want to know why we weren't given the opportunity to purchase any of this land, because it couldn't be divided, but now it's getting divided 16 times. So what are we going to be able to potentially build up? Because we were also told that that's not an option on our side of First Street because it obstructs the view on the other side of First Street. So we don't have the potential to build up to regain our view, and we will lose. I just called I just spoke with a local real estate agent in Lowell this morning to confirm, and she said that, yeah, you will lose anywhere between $50,000 and $20,000 in your home's equity as soon as those houses go up,
Because you lose your view.
because we lose our view. And yes, we love our view, and we know there's the potential that someday someone might have to build behind us. We knew that buying our home. But we also thought, if someone's gonna build there, why can't we buy land there as well? Why don't we have that option to better our home? I mean, we're already here. My husband coaches the vast majority of children in Lowell, so I don't know why we don't have that option.
Is it, I mean, I guess we'd have to look into it to understand that, but if it's, I'm wondering, do you think that the man that owned it just didn't want to split it that way?
I don't think, I wouldn't think so, only because so much of the other land had been split that way previously. So I wouldn't think so, and I couldn't really see a reason why he wouldn't want to, because I know we were willing to buy it, as were the two neighbors next to us. We were all willing to buy. And I'm sure that, I'm not sure, but I would imagine other neighbors are as well. But I can't speak for them.
Perhaps touch on that, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, if you like. Any land division, if you have a big chunk of land and you want to cut off a little piece, that's going to require some kind of partition. And I can turn it over to, I'll do my best to explain it, and Henry's here, he could certainly do a better job. But it would require it would require a partition plat, and then that would have to go through the planning commission, and then they would have it replatted, and then you'd have a little chunk, a new tax law that you could buy. And to my knowledge, the person who owned it in the past never approached the city about that possibility. And as far as the building, our building code, our development code does allow the opportunity to go up to 2 stories or a maximum of 35 feet. So I'll turn it over to Henry there. I'm sure he could explain it better than me.
Yeah. I'm not sure I have much more to add, Jeremy. You're right. Something like that would be a partition. I believe the building height in Lowell is 30 feet or 2 stories. I don't have much. I'm not familiar with this particular property. I don't think I have much else to add on that, Jeremy.
So in my mind, it sounds like he wasn't, even if he knew he could do that, he wasn't really wanting to go through that process. That's the only thing, I mean, because it could have been done. So it's kind of with his decision, it sounds like.
So it could have been done. It could have been divided. It was just,
Well, he could have partitioned off a piece, but maybe he didn't really want to go through the process. I mean, we can't crawl into his head now and find out,
yeah,
but
it's just
but we do.
disappointing to hear, because we would have paid whatever for that process to be done, so we could have done that. So, and so you're saying that we are able to build a second story on that side of First Street.
Best of my knowledge, yes.
As long as your first story is not greater than 30 feet.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful. No, it's not.
Well,
Okay,
I would
so
add,
we're gonna-
if you're creating a legal lot, it has to meet the minimum lot size as well, which is 7,000 feet in Lowell.
Yes, I've seen that from the plan, so you can imagine living on. And will people like me who want, and our family who want to purchase more land, will we be able to potentially buy one of those lots without putting a house on it?
I would think so. Sure.
Yeah.
We will, because I know up,
Well,
What is
that's
it?
up to the seller.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
up Highlands, you were not allowed to do that. Up Highlands, you had to, per what my sister, she tried to buy one, per what I understand the city was saying, you had to
No,
put
it's the
a building.
CCNRs, I believe. that
It's going to
govern that.
depend on the CCRs for this specific
That's
development.
that's the
I
property
would contact-
developers' rules for development on their property.
Right.
They
So-
cannot apply additional regulations on top of the city.
Okay, so who then would I
Be
need
the
to
owners.
contact
The
to?
owners were listed on there.
The HOA president,
Go ahead, Jerry.
Who's
Be
the
there.
HOA president?
Yes, who is that?
the HOA president, so some of this is outside of the city's purview. This is, sounds like CCNRs are be involved here, and that's between a homeowners association, and it's not really the city's business.
Who is that then? Who is
Well, the seller is going to be Jerry Valencia.
So he would be the HOA.
Well, he's the seller.
He's
I
the
would
owner.
start there. As
Okay.
far as you wanting to buy a lot, that's where you would start, I would assume. And
Okay.
then as far as what you can do from there, then you have to find out who the HOA president is.
And you would
And
know.
Mr. Valencia.
Well, it probably isn't there because it's something.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I would
there
say-
may not-
I would say just by the reason.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
guess, yeah, there probably isn't one,
Okay.
but there will be at some point, so.
Okay. Well, that, I mean, answers, I think.
I'm glad you
Yeah, thank
came
you.
and asked.
Next up, Ken Hearn, please. You can speak from there, or you can come on up.
I'll just stay here if it's okay.
Okay,
My name is Ken Hearn. I live at 40 Trailblazer Court. And I'm here to speak in favor of the city council approving the planning commission and the city's recommendation for Jerry and Julie Valencia's subdivision, whatever the legal name is. I live in the northwest corner of the subdivision. I mean, the houses that are gonna be there are gonna look right down on my house, which is in my backyard. But that's fine. I knew that when I bought my lot back in 2003. I knew that was gonna be a subdivision at some time and houses were gonna be built there. I did my research and knew that was gonna happen. I served on the planning commission way back when we talked about the 30 feet height and 7,000 square foot lots and all that stuff. So, you know, as long as the planning, you as the city council ask the planning commission to do things that you guys don't have time to do. That's what the planning commission, the parks committee, all of those things are for, is because you guys don't have time, your plate is full. And they have done that. They've asked questions, they went through all the process. The staff report, you know, was accurate to the planning commission's questions and stuff like that. And that's all I gotta say is I'm here to ask the council to approve Jerry and Julie Valencia's subdivision.
I believe your property butts up to lots 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of the.
But anyway,
so,
Yeah, you're downstream from all of them.
Yeah, and my son who owns the property next door to me
Correct.
at 30 Trailblazer Court, he has no problem with it either.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else?
I
Yes,
just had one more question. Does that mean, and this might be something that he has that we have to ask the committee, but do you know if the houses that are going there will be 2 stories tall? Or is that not something that's decided? So we still might end up losing
I don't think we,
that 50,000 in our home's equity.
my guess, if it's like a lot of others in town here, they probably will sell the lot with the idea that the buyer will put on whatever house he wants to put on there, 1 or 2 story, but that's a guess on my part. So I have no idea. Jerry Valencia owns Bridgeway Construction. You can give a call down there and ask to talk to him and just touch base and see what his plans are. I think that would probably be the easiest, and that would get you actual answers from someone who's has the knowledge.
Yes. No.
Anyone else? Not seeing, not hearing. Anything else, Mr. Cole, you want to add before we close this?
The developer and the developer's representative are on here. They're certainly welcome to make any comments if the council wishes.
Does the developer want to answer some of the questions presented? Not seeing anybody, not hearing anybody.
I have a question.
Gary,
No, I was
going
waiting
off
for you.
you.
We have no comment at this time.
Go ahead.
He said he has no.
Oh, no comments at the time, okay. Okay. Then we'll close the hearing at 8:27. And we'll reconvene the regular session. 8:27. Okay. Further discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
I still don't understand the street requirement, and I know that there's a street plan that's coming out, but and barring getting out with my Bucker's tape to measure
I thought
curb
of
to
that.
curb, which I'm not gonna do. I don't understand what the requirement is, and I bring this up because it was an issue when Sunridge was first platted, you know, which this was a part of in terms of the, you know, the street plan going forward, or the idea was there. So I don't understand and Henry, you'll probably know this, or Max, the street width and right-of-way width up above Lake Town, so that's Sunridge, and the street width and right-of-way below it. What are those dimensions?
You know off the top of your head, Max?
Max, you want, I think Max got that one.
So to the west, which would be the continuation of Lowell into Sunridge and First, is a 60-foot dedicated right of way. But the street, you know, the right of way includes everything, utility easement, sidewalks, curbs, everything. The street is narrower there. I don't know the exact dimensions. I had the paper, it's gonna bring it, but the reason for the 60-foot right of way in this section was to match the existing right of way to the west. The road that's being proposed will be a 28-foot paved surface, so 14 feet travel lanes on both sides, curb gutter, and then 5.5-foot sidewalks, which is city standard for, you know, regular through streets. Like Crestview Estates is the same, Sunset is exactly the same. Wetlow is a little bit different. So Wetlow is a 28-foot street, double sidewalk from both sides of the curb, but it's a 50-foot right of way. So the right of way doesn't necessarily depict
Wetlow below,
below the subdivision,
This
yeah,
one.
so to the south of this.
so it's a
Yeah.
50.
It is a
right of way.
50-foot right of way, but the street
Paved area.
is gonna be exactly the same as what they're proposing to put in on the subdivision. To the west of it is a little bit different. They had some, you know, I wasn't here for the time, but there was some slope and some angle issues. So they did get approved a much newer road. That's why they have the no parking on one side up there, and then also on Sunridge. So Sunridge is only a paved, I think it's 18 or 20 feet, so it's not a 28-foot paved street. Sidewalk on one side, flush curb or mounted curb on the other.
Okay, but it's gonna be 60-foot right away, 60, 60, 50.
Yeah, so and I called today on this because I think this question would come up. So there was already a 60-foot access easement there prior to this, right? So it was access to get from Wetlow to continue on to Sunridge development, this First Street, Wetlow, and Sunridge. So they just took the right of way, kept it to 60, and expanded the right of way to the 60, which will become city property, you know, a 60-foot city right of way. But the planned street is 14 feet sidewalk curve, which is pretty much the city standard.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, so it will be the same with the Wetlow on the south side, the low income subdivision.
Okay, that clears up. I just couldn't find it in the map, so I appreciate that. And I kept driving it and I couldn't.
Right now, it just goes off the dirt and stuff, so it's not as wide as it will be, so.
But you can't tell right away.
Maureen.
Yes.
Yes. It is I. Now, I do agree with the concern with Lon on the safety and life safety for fire trucks and stuff like that. But I would imply that, or I would like to suggest that we have this as a community and do this throughout all the streets that have a 28-foot curb to curb, so that we still have good life safety mechanisms, so that we, as our town fills up, that we have parking on one side and a lot, the fire trucks that come up, or ambulances or whatever else is up. But I think that that's something that we have to discuss as a city, as an entire community, because one, I think aesthetically, it looks a lot more pleasing. Two, it is very, very tight going through the road systems in Lowell. If you're in a truck or you're pulling a truck and a trailer or something like that. But it's something that, no one really talked about until recently. And I think that when it came to fruition, when we did the lower St. Vincent de Paul houses, that everybody noticed that man, that is tight going through there. And especially when you have that little switchback. But I would implore the entire city and the entire city council to be on the same page so that we make this a life safety issue and look at it from that way as a more global, holistic approach in that. Does that make sense, Henry?
Yes, it does. And that's sort of what Lon was saying as well, when he went back and looked at the issue. It needs to be discussed as a community, not just specific to your subdivision.
That's the only question.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Want me to do it?
Normally it's the
Yeah.
next in line, council
Okay,
president. That's what I'm
I'll
used
make
to.
a motion to approve the Lake Town tentative subdivision plat approval, LU number 2021-13. That should do it right. Reviewing planning commission recommendation for approval of a 16 lot subdivision for property located at assessor's map 19-01-14-13, tax lot 03700.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the planning commission's recommendation for approval of the Town Lake tentative subdivision plot approval in land use application file 2021-13, subject to findings of the conditions contained in the staff report. Okay. Further discussion, questions, thoughts? Not hearing any, not seeing any of those. All those in favor of motion to accept the planning commission's recommendation for approval of Lake tentative subdivision for plat approval in lane use application file 2021-13, subject to the findings and conditions contained in the staff report, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
It's a typo. It should be land use.
Land use, you're right. I was trying to think land. Lane
Since we're in
County.
Lane County, I know that's what.
It doesn't read right either, so. Okay, next up, item number 2, new business, direction of the city council on question and answer forum for proposed Dollar General store. Mr. Cottle, you want to kick that off?
Yes, thank you. Let me navigate real quick to the agenda sheet item.
320 or 313, depending on if it's new or old.
Is that what we're at?
Oh, that's why it changed page number. That's right, because it came out with.
I've just got my
I
iPad.
thought I
It doesn't tab.
Oh,
I try and make notes on it.
It was 3, right?
my apologies.
No problem.
I have.
All right, on March the 4th, city staff, along with the city engineer, our planning consultants, Public Works, the fire department, we met with the developer who's proposing to build a 80 square foot Dollar General commercial business, along with a 4-plex multifamily residential development to the north of the proposed business. This is located on a 1.53 acre lot at tax lot number 1901-11-33-06502. This is near the Parks Department property, and it used to be owned by the Parks Department. During the pre-application conference, staff mentioned the idea of the developer having or conducting a question and answer session with members of the community. This would not be a city council meeting. It would not be a formal city meeting. We could help plan it. We could help coordinate it, but this would be a forum that the developer would conduct in addition to what's legally required for the public hearings. This will be prior to them actually submitting the application. Our rationale was twofold. The first is the size, the scope, and the unique nature of the proposed development. This will be a unique and unprecedented development for the city of Lowell. We've never had a chain business come to the community. We've never had a major retail business come to the community, and staff's intention was to have an opportunity for the public to come out and ask questions of the developer to find out what they're actually proposing. Also, it would give the members of the public the ability to have an informed opinion before they show up at the public hearings. Oftentimes, when we get to a public hearing and citizens show up, they show up to find out what's going on, and at that point, it's too late. Public hearing is like a courtroom. It's limited to giving formal testimony. So this would give members of the public a chance to be more informed. And then lastly, as possible, the developer could receive feedback that they could incorporate prior to submitting an application that could help them better serve the community's needs. And then the second reason is the complexity of the planning issues. This would require several complex planning procedures. They would have to amend the zoning map. There would have to be a partition plan, and there would have to be a site review. This would give an opportunity for staff to provide factual answers to the community on how all those processes work. I'm asking for your direction tonight. You are excellent judges of how best to engage the community. I'm asking for your feedback tonight on if you believe this would be a valuable process. I would maintain that if we do go this route, we would emphasize our neutrality, objectivity for a question and answer forum. The next step would be to select a date. We would advertise it. We would mail notices to everybody within a certain radius. If the answer is that this would not be a useful expenditure of time, then we will direct the developer to proceed directly to turning in their application to the planning commission.
I think like anything, the more information we get out to the public, the better. Because whether it's a yay or a nay, it doesn't really matter. But I think that the public needs to have the information. If they know that something's going on and they don't have the ability to either hear, give input, ask questions, I think there's going to be some concerns there. So that's my thought. At this point, it's like you say, it's a question and answer. It's not a decision-making forum.
It doesn't come close. Yeah.
They may hear what they're going to hear what they're going to hear. So yes, go ahead.
My question is about timing. Given that we are going to have a lot of, public process in this, what was your thinking in Henry's? What was your thinking in terms of timing?
On when to schedule this?
In the process, timing of the day in the process of this entire application.
We were thinking of the question and answer forum, the end of this month, first week of April.
I mean, within the process of this application being processed.
But before anything is officially submitted.
Before anything's officially
Okay.
submitted. Okay.
Mhm.
The reason why I ask is because I have a concern about that, because we have a really good process for vetting applications. And what I worry about is if it's too early in the process, then we put this Q&A out about an application that hasn't met any tests at all about anything that's feasible, permissible. And so you can do, well, one of three things. It can be neutral, or it can be something proposed that can't happen and everybody goes nuts, or it's about something that is, can happen, but that's not what's being proposed. You know what I mean? When I think there has to be a vetting process before a public Q&A to get closer to what is allowable and permissible, the whole test, instead of a conceptual plan. I think we've gotten, thing I mentioned is about the roundabout was in this conceptual plan. I mean, we're treating this application like a conceptual plan if we're having a Q&A session before any vetting is my fear. Because then it's like, well, look at all the stuff we're gonna do. And then the big bad city has to come in at the first public hearing and say, nope, can't do it that way. Nope, can't do it that way after applicant promises things that they were gonna do if the city would let them. And this is not, you
Or
know,
we
this doesn't
don't
have anything to do with Dollar
decide.
General. It has to do with any developer that comes in and does that. So I just would like us to vet this a bit before we go to the public with a Q&A so that it's at least in the realm of feasible. And so that it's not just a, you know, a big, hey, here's some cool stuff we're gonna do. And people say, hey, can we do that? Sure. Hey, can you do that? And then that's not the application we see because, you know, planning staff, Henry, inside staff, planning commission gets to it and it's like, that's not in conformance with our.
Jeremy, tell me if I think I understood this, that we, you know, part of the big decision is whether that property gets rezoned.
Well, that's the
Right.
applications for the rezone.
Well, right, I understand.
The
that,
first
but I
deal.
guess if
You can't
we're
build unless it's
concerned
on-
about that, then is there any point in talking to, you know, having that before that's decided? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
That's what
my
you're
point.
saying. That's
my
what you're
point.
saying.
Yeah.
I have kind of a twofold concern. One is a lack of moderation or a moderator for this event. I think most of us were present during the last presentation at the, or the kind of the public hearing we had for the previous development of 205 East Main Street. And to me, my concern is that this ends up being a statement of opinions versus a question and answer session, and in absence of a moderator, that could turn into, in my opinion, possibly a volatile situation where there's, you know, at this time, the developer is saying, yeah, we're willing to do this, but if I'm the developer and I'm standing there and people are just expressing opinions after opinion after opinion in a negative manner, and there's no one to moderate that and kind of bring it back to a question and answer session, is there value to that?
Why would you put yourself up?
Yeah. Yeah. So without kind of a framework set for the question and answer session, much like Maureen's saying, in terms of kind of narrowing the scope beforehand to focus that aspect of it, I don't know if we've narrowed the scope in terms of a platform and a framework for the event itself in this. So at this point, I feel like it's a little bit amorphous, and I don't think it's fleshed out enough to really have an advantageous, controlled, and productive outcome on a couple of different levels.
Well, maybe it's just the time.
So the option would be for them to
It's
go
not so
straight
much-
to the planning commission
It's not so much not to do it, but just the time.
Timing.
without. Okay, because they'll go to the planning commission, it'll come to us for public hearing. And by the time they do that, there's gonna be some money changed hands, so. It's gonna be,
Well, possibly not.
So in terms of process,
Go
the
ahead.
site review and the petition will go to planning commission only. The zone change request will go to planning commission and then city council for final action.
And that'll be first, right, Henry? The zoning request has to be first before you. That's a site plan.
They've asked for it to happen concurrently, so we'll get them all kind of scheduled in line. However, and you should avoid talking about the zone change specifically because you are the decision-making body on that application. The application will fall apart, obviously, if the zone change is not approved. So
That was my,
Yeah,
that was. my
they are dependent upon one another.
yeah.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
sure,
You know, Jeremy read off all the legal description of it, but I have no idea where this is, except that it's on North Moss. Can you explain to me where this?
It's that open acreage this side of the state parks.
Across
Building
from the
there, that's an
duplex. Across from the
open
duplex.
acre and a half or so on that side of the road.
On the east
Right.
side.
Yeah,
As you're going up, there where you guys park for your antique car get together, that's open plot there just below it.
Okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
What's it currently,
Public land,
public land?
because state parks owned it,
Okay,
or the
gotcha.
feds,
Thank you.
state did.
state, I think.
They tried to swap it.
About that.
Remember that?
Failure.
So I think the direction, it sounds like what we want to do is that we don't want to have the question and answer session at this point because we don't have it. We haven't been presented with enough information to even to know what the question and answer session would look like to the people and
To make it productive.
yeah, to make it productive. And also, whenever we had that open house in here, we had already drawn up plans and everything, had them on the wall, we had the contractor, we had some sort of activity that happened to get us to the point where that our agent was showing different plans that were available, different options that were available. And I don't know where it's, without having that kind of information or that kind, I don't know what it's gonna, I just don't know. I have no idea where it's gonna go with it. Kind of like Tim, I don't know if it's gonna be a bunch of people not being presented what would be healthy for them to know, or if just people come in with opinions, or so I think we're probably just going the direction of just going to the planning commission, let them work. That's pretty much what I'm hearing.
Right, but I think we can be open to the possibility of just doing it at a different time. Maybe after that's all done, then decide
Yeah.
if it's gonna go through,
Yeah.
is that worth doing outside of the public hearing as well?
I think as
So
maybe-
not to
you're
just
probably
mix
right.
it, but
As
just
things come
maybe,
together and they get some sort of a package that if they, come and they want to present, I think that would probably be right now, but it's just a piece of
a
dirt.
lot of unanswered questions.
It doesn't
right now.
preclude the applicant from doing their own Q&A.
100%.
It's
Sure.
just,
That's
it's just
true.
this joint thing that makes it get a little bit more legitimacy that I don't think can give it because it hasn't been vetted.
I agree with you. I agree.
We're not
I
denying.
appreciate the feedback, Mr. Mayor. I'll inform the developer. They should submit their application and go through the normal process.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Hall,
Yeah, why are we even talking Dollar General? Didn't we go through this?
because
a few
they're the
months
ones that
back?
made the application
No, didn't we go through this a few months back?
for 205 Main.
On a different piece of property.
Yeah, it's on a different piece.
So we have to go through all this BS again?
Yeah, we do.
Well, it's
Or what we
different.
call the process.
It's different this time. The city does not own that land.
Yeah,
That's
we
right.
don't tend to.
Come sit here.
So you've got your plan. Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, number 3, motion to approve resolution 777, resolution adopting the supplemental budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. We'll recess our regular meeting at 8:51. And we'll start our public hearing at 8:51. Mr. Colley, you want to explain this?
Yes, thank you. I'm asking for city council approval tonight of a supplemental budget for the building fund. Since this is over the 10% change per state law, if you change the appropriations by 10%, you have to have a formal public hearing, you have to advertise it and all that good stuff. And we advertised it. We have it scheduled for tonight. We have had a lot of building activity going on, more than what we projected when we prepared the budgets. We've spent more than what we projected for our third-party building official, and we've received more building permit revenues than what we projected. This would make sure our budget has enough appropriations, so we don't overspend it by fiscal year end. So this would increase revenues 57,250, and it would increase expenditures 57,250.
Any questions of the city administrator? Okay, do we have anybody wishing to make public comments?
Waking up on this matter.
Okay. Not seeing any, not hearing any. Public hearing closed at 8:52. And regular session reconvened at 8:52. Do you have any other questions, comments, thoughts? Sounds like business is good.
It is in the building business.
Deb, looking for a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution number 777 as presented.
Okay,
Second.
and we have a motion and a second by Gail. Okay. Do we have further discussion, questions, or anything? All those in favor of motion to approve resolution 777, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 and making supplemental appropriations, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Motion to authorize the city to sign a purchase and sale agreement, receipt for the earnest money and option agreement. Mr. Cottle, talk to this thing.
In November, the city council approved a contract with Lowell Investment Properties for 205 East Main Street. So we didn't sign the agreement. We had a few more details to work out. We met last week. We worked out those details. That is reflected here in this contract. Since it is a change, I'm requesting you to vote on it. The change is under section 2, the conditions to sell. We put a provision in there that we obtain a no further action determination letter from DEQ regarding the underground gasoline storage tanks. If approved tonight, I'll go ahead and the buyer and I can go ahead and sell. What that will do is that will leave the escrow process open until we meet these conditions to purchase, but we'll be officially under contract. The buyer has made an offer, and we accepted, and we're steadily working towards the sale.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Cottle? We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the city administrator to sign a purchase and sale agreement and receipt for earnest money and option agreement with Lowell Investment Properties LLC for the sale of 205 East Main Street.
Yeah, we have a second.
One second.
Okay, and Gail seconded. Okay, further discussion, questions, anything? All those in favor of motion to authorize the city administrator to sign a purchase and sale agreement and receipt for earnest money and option agreement with the Lowell Investment Properties LLC for the sale of 205 East Main, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Fantastic. Motion to approve resolution 778, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to apply for funding through local government grant program. Mr. Cottle.
This resolution is required for our application for the LGGP program. This basically says that it's supported by city council and that we have matching funds available. Our matching funds are the Land and Water Conservation Fund grants that we have already received. This is a formality so I can submit the grant application.
Questions for Mr. Cottle? Then I'll make a motion to approve resolution 778, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to apply for funding through the local government grant program for the Rolling Rock Park Phase 1 project. We have a second.
Second.
Maureen seconded. Okay, we have discussion. Not seeing, not hearing. All those in favor of motion to approve resolution 778, a resolution authorizing the city administrator to apply for funding through the local government grant program for the Rolling Rock Park Phase 1 project, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Good. Next up is review of the Blackberry Jam applicant. You want to tell us about her?
We have a vacancy on the Blackberry Jam Festival Committee. A local resident, Misa Andrews, has stepped up and showed interest in assisting in organizing the event. At the last meeting, she actually chaired the event, and I've trained her on how to operate the system. The committee has voted to allow her, Tony Marisi, and Tina Marisi to work together as kind of a subcommittee to do all the administrative and organizational work. She's been pretty gung-ho about this. She's shown some great energy and ideas, and has shown a commitment to step up where we had difficulty getting some folks to step up. So I'm asking for your approval to formally appoint her to the committee.
Any questions, city administrator? Okay, we have a motion.
I move approval of Marissa Misa Anders to the Blackberry Jam Festival Committee.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and second, and I met her once and she seems like a wonderful lady. And all those in favor of appointing Marisa Misa Anders to the Blackberry Jam Committee signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, glad to have her. And now we're up to other business. Receipt of updates on the Parks and Recreation Committee. Mr. Colley, you want to speak to this?
I'll turn this over to that committee chairman.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not getting up.
okay. We'll listen from here.
Thank you. Paula Regan, 62 East Third. Last month, the park committee got together on a Saturday and we did a walkthrough at Paul Fisher and Rolling Rock. Determine projects that we could do that won't bust the budget as far as repairs and improvements to the parks. And then we came up with 14 items. We prioritized them. And that's where we're at right now. And we came up with, well, like I said, 14 items, and it's a lot of it is going to be volunteer work. But I think some of it's going to have to be contracted out also. So I'll get together with the city administrator on that as far as estimates and that sort of stuff before we move on to the projects. That's what's going on with the park committee.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it.
Okay. That sounds good.
I have a question.
Sure.
Max, when I was doing the lights out on the caboose, I called you and pointed out the electrical feed issues for the caboose. Have those been resolved?
They've been looked at, but they have not been resolved. That is not on the list because it's a separate issue.
Okay.
Yep.
I think some of this looks like public works could probably do, and some of it may have need contractors or whatever, but something for the city administrator, you can, you have this, and you can work with the Parks Committee on this. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. The one thing I know, the caboose in the past, they tried to get the paneling on the side, and I guess over the last 10 years, I think they found there's no paneling to be gotten, so some sort of waterproof paint or something.
No, we'll,
What's that again?
we're on it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
We're not gonna put any plastic paneling on there. But
Yes.
It just takes some good woodwork to do what needs to be done.
All sounds good. Thank you all for putting this together.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else by anybody? Yes.
It's for Jeremy. There's a couple comments popped up when you were talking. I wasn't sure if they were.
You have something?
We're good, thank you.
Everybody's happy?
Gary's asked a couple of questions on the chat during the meeting. I think it's what Max was talking about. Is that what you're talking about?
I can't read them. I just seen them. Yeah, when Jeremy was presenting.
You see him on
I
there?
think he's already addressed them. Yeah.
I don't.
On the chat.
Yeah, I think it's
we don't, it's not really a chat meeting. We
No.
don't do
No,
chat.
Yeah, okay.
There's opportunity for public
Okay.
comment.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have anything other past the public comment hour. So with that, we're adjourned at 9:02.